Chair recognizes the gentleman from Van Buren, Representative Shipley, for opening remarks on Amendment 1433.
All right, the purpose of this amendment is to really clarify that employees have protection, that employees cannot be mandated to take a COVID-19 vaccination as a condition of employment. This really is restating the law as it presently stands, because under no circumstances should an emergency use authorized product be mandated on anyone. Unfortunately, we haven't really been observing the law so closely, so I think we've heard from at least I've heard from a lot of people that are just bent out of shape wondering, am I going to be forced to get a vaccine to keep my job? And you ask the question, is that legal? And you keep getting different answers. Well, we don't know what the law says, so we're going to follow the EEOC guidance. And the EEOC guidance under Trump differs markedly than the EEOC guidance under Biden. So this is good language. This has been vetted. Most of this amendment's been vetted by the Senate. It passed the Senate Human Resources Committee. And I was told that there were a lot of senators on board, and then somehow a lobbyist got involved at the last minute, and the people of Iowa were squelched by a well-connected lobbyist who funneled this bill. But the language was vetted by the Senate Human Resources Committee. I've heard other members in the chamber tell me that they are supportive of this language. I did go a little bit further and just clarify that religious exemptions apply to all people at all times. Because for those who follow the pandemic closely, there was an incident last year where a bureaucrat for the state of Iowa was informing school districts that religious exemptions to vaccines don't apply. And while that's one way to interpret the law, I think that's a very uncharitable way to interpret it. And thankfully, the governor was able to step in, but it took a few weeks to get that ironed out. And in the meantime, there was a lot of uncertainty on whether a religious exemption to a vaccine applies during a state of an emergency, irregardless if the pandemic illness is connected with the vaccine, right? Oh, we have a COVID-19 emergency, but you have to mandatorily take a measles shot to attend school. That was kind of the situation we were facing last summer, and thankfully that bureaucrat was corrected, but not by us, by the governor's office. So anyway, this is really good language, just restating what we know the law already says, that employers are not allowed to mandate a COVID-19 vaccine as a condition of employment. And there's lots of reasons on why they shouldn't be allowed to do this, but apparently there's still some uncertainty, because I'll read you a text message I got from an old college acquaintance just on Monday. This is my friend Michael. He lives in Coralville. We met when I was in Iowa City, and we haven't stayed in touch too much over the years, but thankfully we've been reconnecting lately. He sent me this on Monday morning. He said the wife's coworker got the jab yesterday, was told by the husband's employer that she had to get it. So this is interesting, that an employer is not making mandates for the employee. They're actually mandating the employee and the employee's family. On what earth that's legal, I don't know, but it's very difficult when the law is unclear and people don't necessarily know what the law says or know how to assert their rights. I mean, even me in this chamber, I have a hard time to figure out how do I actually ask the right question and assert my freedom. So this is a very interesting situation where an employee thought it was legal to not only mandate it for the employee, but also that employer's spouse, and woke up at 4 a.m. unable to breathe and is still hospitalized today, 2 days later. So that's what's happening in Iowa right now, that employers are operating as if they can legally mandate this, and they're coercing people. And we know the pressure is so immense because you read the Des Moines Register where they say, they've been issuing editorials for months now saying that, we need to pressure people into taking this. And so that's been this. Imagine you're an employee and you're being pressured to take this. You don't know what the law says. You see some EEOC guidance from last year. You see different EEOC guidance this year. You don't know what to do. And they're threatening to take your job, which I think that was interesting. To the point I was trying to make earlier about why Jacobson versus Massachusetts is important is because part of that case law is that the penalty incurred for declining the vaccination must be somewhat appropriate or reasonable to the public health impact of your declination. And so in the Jacobson case, it was a $5 fine, roughly, a couple $100 a day. Who knows how that inflation works, and inflation's rising. So that was one thing where in that condition, the vaccine was mandated because if you didn't take it, you had to pay $5. But this is, if you don't take the vaccine, you don't have a job. You've lost your livelihood. In Jacobson, it was smallpox, which has an infection fatality rate of about 30%, would be my estimate. Very, very lethal, deadly disease. The COVID infection fatality rate, even among the most vulnerable, is not nearly that high. So when we're threatening to take away people's employment as a condition of the COVID-19 vaccine, to me, it really doesn't seem reasonable, especially for people who've already recovered from the illness. And so obviously there's a lot more to this issue. I just wanted to make sure that religious exemptions apply at all times, because there's been some discrepancies on that, and just making sure that, yeah, people have an option to refuse a vaccine, but also a gene therapy or any invasive medical procedure, whatever they come out with next, and that's our right. And, you know, just like you don't have to join a union as a condition of employment in the state of Iowa, we're right to work. Why would you have to take a vaccine as a condition of employment? So anyway, this is a very important area of the law to clarify. This language has been vetted by the Senate with some additional language, but it's, I think, a very, very simple proposal that's basically restating what the law already says. And it needs to be clarified because we have employers in Iowa that do believe that they have the ability to override their employees' bodily autonomy, that could take their employment away from them if they don't get a vaccine for a disease that they might not necessarily be at high risk for. This is the thing, because the laws must apply evenly. Everyone must be even under the law. But COVID, as we've seen, does not affect people evenly, that there is a big gradient on who's at risk and who's not. So, you know, when we're measuring out these totalitarian health dictates, I think we really need to take into account that everyone's different and that there are differences. There's gradients. Not everyone's affected in the same way. As we've seen from the clinical research, older people are less likely to experience severe events for the vaccine than younger people are, and vice versa for the virus, that older people are much likely to experience severe events compared to young people. So there are some differences there. There's deltas. There's a lot of room for just nuance and just get to the bottom of what's really going on. But anyway, this is a simple, straight amendment to this bill. And we're really clarify that an employer does not have the right to require an employee to take a vaccination as a condition of employment. Those are my opening comments. Happy to take any questions.
Is there discussion? The chair recognizes the gentleman from Crawford, Representative Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would question if this amendment is germane.
Will the gentleman from Van Buren and Crawford please approach well? Chair recognizes the gentleman from Van Buren for a motion.
I would move to suspend the rules to consider Amendment H1433 and ask for a division in the record.
Gentleman from Van Buren moves to immediately consider Amendment H1433. Request division in record. Will the clerk open the machine? Cisneros votes aye. Wolf votes no. Losi votes no. Donahue votes no. Hanson votes no. Clerk closed machine. The chair is no longer in doubt. The amendment H1433 has failed. We are now back on discussion for